can't join us. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Terrence Hood, and I serve as Associate Director for Alumni and Student Athletes and Student Athlete Development and the TCU Career Center. McKenna, I'll allow you to say hello, introduce yourself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm a graduate assistant in student athlete development, and thank you everyone for joining. We didn't think it would be this big, and it's super exciting to see how many people wanted to jump on. So thank you so much for your time.
Hey, McKenna.
Hello.
I love the shout outs.
All right. So first things first, happy Wednesday, everybody. If everybody could do me like a massive favor, I hate feeling like I'm talking to a computer screen. It's like if you've got cameras, I don't care if you're on a practice field, you're driving in your car, you just got in the shower, I don't care. I just want to see some faces as best as we can. Make sure that, remember, this is being recorded, so put the drinks down. Don't have anything like, remember, I know you're athletes, we get it. I see you, Anna, Allie, Sarah, Hannah, Maddie, I see it, Sarah, Bryce, Flynn, Caitlin, Alexis. Okay, we're moving. Ethan must be cold. He's got his hoodie on, ready to rock it. Okay. Bella, good to see you. Danny is driving. Good for you, Danny Dennison. Showing your face, driving and everything. I love it. Shay, all right. See, now we're getting somewhere. This is what I'm talking about. All right, so in addition to that, I'd like for everybody to do one thing for me. Please don't do this if you're driving. I'd like you to stand up and give yourself some energy, whether it's clapping, it's yelling, it's making fun of yourself, whatever you got to do, okay? Something that you need to do. For me, it's always clapping, okay? You ever do that like before a game or like a big goal, or like you start clapping and you're like fired up about it, okay? That's what I want you to do. We need to stand up. Listen. It's 7:05 on a Wednesday evening. You guys could be doing literally anything else, and you're here with me. Kathleen, I don't know who has the towels on, but your friend, I love it. The fact that you guys are here, that's fantastic, okay? You guys can be doing anything else, I promise. So we want to make sure we maximize the time together, right? You could be training, you could be practicing, you could be studying. You're going to get out of this what you expect, okay? My hope is that you don't expect something dry, and you hope to be able to take 2 or 3 good takeaways to help you make the transition from being a rock star athlete to transitioning into the professional world, all right? So here's going to be my ask. There's a chat feature. As I go through this, as I introduce our speakers, the number one thing that I'm going is that you put questions that you have within the chat feature, okay? I'm going to be the one who's moderating this, and I have some questions prepared, etc. But I'd rather this be engaging. I would rather you put your questions in. If you have comments, emojis, if you want me to stop talking, whatever you want to do, I want you to put it into the chat feature. It'll help a ton, okay? Please, and if you don't put things into the chat feature, I promise I have no problem just calling people by name randomly. It will actually get you away from being called on, I can assure you, okay? All right, so first things first, I also want to share with you my screen. So we've got roughly 50 minutes together, and we might not go the entire time. We'll see how this goes. But big picture, this idea is players to professionals. And rather than just me talking, all right, and you listening, I want to make sure that you get to hear from as many different people as possible, all of whom are former collegiate athletes who made the transition from sports to being a professional, all right? And hearing and understanding what that transition looked like, because the majority of you on this call probably won't turn into professional athletes. When you hear my story, you'll understand why, okay? And big picture, I want to really cover just these 3 things. I'll tell you my story as an athlete. I also want to share with you why I'm so passionate about helping student athletes like yourself. I do presentations all the time across Big 12, Big 10, One of my best friends, him and I go to Harvard every single year and talk to the football team because he played there with Ryan Fitzpatrick. A little fun fact for you. Then we're going to spend roughly 10 minutes doing a panelist introduction. We've got some awesome folks that are here to be a Q&A. And then the great thing is the last 40 minutes, I hope to say as little as possible, okay? I really do. I hope to be able to just moderate the conversation, have you guys ask questions within the chat feature. We'll take it off of this and just put everybody's cameras back on and give everyone an opportunity to ask really whatever questions that you have. Sound fair? This is where like everyone's on mute. So like a thumbs up, a nod, like a waving of the white flag, towels on the head, you take the towel off, whatever it is, just something that acknowledges it, all right? So let me tell you my story. Growing up, my dad played professional soccer, okay? And what they don't tell you about professional athletes is that you can't always become one. At 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, that was always my dream. And I played at the highest level you could. If you guys have heard of Real Madrid, this is me playing against Real Madrid. I traveled all over the world. I was a part of the Olympic development program, was winning state, regional, national championships, highest level in soccer. But I had a series of knee injuries, knee issues. And as I was being recruited within the process, I was being recruited by all of these big Division I sexy programs. And a small Division III school came in whenever I was recovering from a knee injury and asked if I wanted to play soccer there. And I told them absolutely not, right? Because who wants to go play Division III sports when you're being courted by these big Division I programs? But long story short, they convinced me to go there on a full academic scholarship of all things. And I didn't have to worry about my knee injury. And I actually started off as a biochemistry and molecular biology major, okay? It is as nerdy as it sounds, I promise you. I go to parties, I tell my major, people would run away because who wants to be stuck at a party talking to like the nerdy guy? However, as I was playing soccer, all I really cared about was sports, okay? Was sports in college, sports growing up. And I really struggled getting excited about that next step in my career. In fact, I really didn't think about it at really any capacity until I started to become an upperclassman when I really should have started that sooner. Here was the issue with me being a biochemistry and molecular biology major, okay? This was it. You see that guy in the white hat, like who's got it down, I'm at the very back of the classroom? That was me. Okay, this was an actual class, by the way, that a buddy took a picture of. I just didn't enjoy it. I wasn't passionate about it. I was really good. And I actually took it so far that I took my MCATs, I got accepted into medical school and I didn't go. And my parents were frustrated and they asked me, what did I want to do? And I told them that I wanted to go and do something way less boring and that I wanted to become an accountant. My mom and dad laughed at me and they're like, Ryan, you know what accounting is? Yeah, people, numbers, I got this. Did an internship with one of the big 4 accounting firms down in Houston. A lot of my friends enjoyed it. Wasn't for me. It takes a special personality to enjoy accounting, and maybe you haven't told. I struggle in that environment. So I decided to explore finance, interviewed with every firm in the history of ever, frankly, and landed here at Equitable at 22 years old within our financial advising and sales program, and got into our management development program within my first 18 months. I'm now one of the regional vice presidents, and my job and role is to mentor, coach, train, develop new folks into this business to make sure that they are wildly more successful than me. And one of the reasons I got into leadership was to help people in the transition, regardless of what firm, what career, what they want to do, making the transition from being a player to going into the professional workforce. And what this has allowed me to do is have a ton of impact in the world. So this is my team that I help and I work with. They're at my house having a pool party. We had some good times 2 years ago. We probably have way too many happy hours. And we just spend a lot of time together within our group and our team. And my hope is that you find your career path where you're able to have the kind of impact, the kind of joy, the kind of passion that I've been so lucky to find that frankly, I happen to luck into. And then you can use these types of platforms to take that next step to build out a network, to learn how to leverage your being an athlete in the interview process, to getting that big promotion, getting the job, getting a larger base salary, right? Better pay for your first career, whatever it might be, that you're able to use these things, have a couple takeaways, and really get into a place where you feel good about those next steps. Sound fair? This is where everyone says, yes. This is where Ethan takes off his hoodie and just goes, yep, I got it. Yep, we're good. Okay, let's see here. Perfect, perfect. So with all of that said, I would really like to make some introductions. All right, we've got 4 panelists here who are fantastic, and I want them to share their story as well. And the whole point of this is so you know who we are first. Hopefully you feel comfortable asking questions, and we can go into a Q&A about the transition. What are your concerns? What are you hoping to get out of it, et cetera? So first up, we have Ben. So Ben's at E&J Gallo Winery, is a market development major, and I made everybody send me a fun fact. And actually, I enjoyed this one the most, because who doesn't have a Netflix account, by the way, right? Like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime. I have all 4. I didn't know people didn't have a Netflix account. So Ben, I'm really interested to hear your story. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. So one, first and foremost, I do, people come in my neck a lot for not having any of those accounts. And I swear I actually don't have any of them, Hulu, Disney, Netflix, none of that. I will bum off some people's every now and then, but I do not have one of my own. So my name's Ben Dillard. I work with the E&J Gallo Winery in Dallas, Texas, as the retail market development manager. And so a little bit of my story and journey to getting here. I started playing basketball at a very young age and played basketball all through high school, and then went to the University of Arkansas Little Rock for college on a full ride scholarship. So kind of to Ryan's point, I did not really think too much about my career at that point. I ended up majoring in business marketing, which was something that kind of people just told me, hey, it'd be the easiest business degree to get, and you can do the most with it. So that's kind of why I ended up choosing that route. And then once I kind of graduated and started really finding myself in the real world, still didn't have anything to do, didn't know which trajectory I wanted to go, didn't know, what industry. And so for 3 months, I was working at a Nike outlet in Allton, Texas, part-time, just trying to, get my bearings straight. And I happened to have a individual who worked at HR at a distributor that our company now supplies product to. I was like, hey, career trajectory is great. You got to put in some work early, but there's a long line in a career path there. And so I went through the process. It worked out, and 5 years later, I was able to work myself up through a sales representative position, a district sales manager, division manager, before starting on with Gallo as a market development manager. So went through the whole ringer, and you learned a lot through all those roles. But kind of similar to Ryan, it kind of was something that fell in front of me. Wasn't really what I was chasing, but now found myself with great career and working with great people and having a good time doing it.
Awesome. Ben, thanks for sharing. And I'm sure that they'll get to know you a little bit more as we go into the panel side, which is great. Next up, I want to introduce Devyn. So Devyn is also at E&J Gallo Winery. I'm the business development manager. I did not get a fun fact for Devyn. I'm just assuming that it's so good that she wanted to hide it from everybody else.
How'd you know?
To make sure that we're all in anticipation. So I've got to hear the fun facts, Devyn, and I would love to hear your story, your background.
Ooh, so my fun fact, as soon as I saw Ben's up on the screen, I realized I had not sent you one. I do have a Netflix account. I think I'm actually one of the people who has like 2 Netflix accounts, because at one point I forgot my password. So I think I probably paid for 2. I think I noticed that actually. So that tells a little bit about me. I did renovate my house in Dallas recently. Then it flooded and I renovated it twice. So I guess that's an interesting fact. Who renovates their house twice in 1 year? But it just finished, so that's kind of fun. I do work with Ben here in Dallas. We work together. And I was a gymnast my whole life. So I spent my whole life at the gym, just like a lot of you guys doing what you guys do. and but left school early, even in elementary school, to do gymnastics. And that's all I really knew. And then I went to the University of Oregon. I was on their acrobatics and tumbling team. After that, similar to the two stories we just heard, I didn't quite know what I wanted to do next. And honestly, I couldn't see past like college athletics. So for a while, I thought I just wanted to stay. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to stay. I'll be a grad assistant. I applied to do my MBA. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And then ended up meeting the Gallo Winery at the one career fair I went to. And I was like, something, I'm looking at Ben in the chat, making me laugh. I met them at the one career fair I went to. And to be honest, the only reason I went to the career fair was because it was part of, I got points for it. You know, how sometimes that you go to different things, you get points for a class or this or the other. Anyways, I fell into this, and I've been here now for 7 years. So yeah, Ben and I cover Dallas together, and then I have another counterpart down in Central Texas. So now I got half the state down here.
I love it. So you make up for Ben not having a Netflix that you have too.
Yeah, I keep us, you know, we work well together.
No, it makes sense. No, I love it. That's great. That's fantastic. So thanks for sharing, really. All right, so next up here, we have Emily. So Emily's there at Nike, senior financial analyst on the running footwear side. And the fun fact is she works the New York Times crossword puzzle every morning. Is that true, Emily?
That's true. I am a huge nerd. Just wanted to get that out there right up front. I do. I've gotten a lot better at it during quarantine. I actually started like working the daily mini, which is like a tiny one, like a couple of years ago, and I've worked my way up to being able to solve the Thursday puzzle, which is the hardest puzzle of the week, if anyone was wondering, every week. So it's been a process, but.
Oh, I love it. And can you give us a 2 to 3 minute story of just your background, et cetera?
Yeah, so I graduated, I think I'm the only person who's went to TCU on this call so far. But I graduated TCU in 2018. I was on the track team. Unlike some other people on this call, I always knew that I was not going to play my sport forever. I snuck in as a walk-on. So I was, pretty confident I had to get a degree in something that I could get a job in after college. So I studied finance and accounting. And I interned with Nike this summer between my junior and senior year through their light sports marketing connection with Nike or with TCU, which is where TCU gets to send one student athlete a summer to intern at Nike World Headquarters in Oregon. So I got into Nike that way, and then I got a return offer. And then graduated and moved out to Portland, Oregon. And I've now been at Nike for 2.5 years, and it's been awesome. I support the running footwear team. So anything, I set like the targets for how much they can spend on each shoe. And I do like long range forecasting for like sourcing with like our factory partners and our costing. Super interesting job. Get to work with really cool people. I'm the only finance person on the team, so everyone else is like a cool like designer or a developer, and they like sketch shoes, and I'm like, no, don't sketch that because that's going to be too expensive. So I really like it. They don't always like me, but I think it's a cool job. And yeah, I'm excited to chat with you all and learn more about some of you guys as well.
I love it. It's great that you're the one who kind of reins in the reality, the ideas. There's got to be somebody in the world. I would definitely be that person who's like, we could build everything. And then you go, I don't think that's good. Let's dial it back a little bit. I need people like that. Yeah, very vital in the world. Last up, we have Marcus. So Marcus is at Hinge Health. He's the regional vice president of sales. And really unique fun fact from a background standpoint, he grew up in a missionary family and traveled all abroad in his teenage years, including his 2 favorite places, Kenya and Beijing. So Marcus, I'm expecting this story to be like really good because clearly you've been around and you've seen a lot of things. Marcus, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for your time, first and foremost. Like Ryan mentioned earlier, you could be a lot of places and you decided to be here. So it's meaningful to you. So that's pretty cool. As Ryan mentioned, I'm a regional vice president here at Hinge Health, and I cover our Texas and Oklahoma territory. And, like a lot of, just college students, period. Unless you're in the, doctoral program or theater, a lot of times you don't know exactly that dream job that you want walking across the stage. And I absolutely didn't. But in terms of, just a little bit about my background, I actually was a student athlete at TCU. I played football, class of '08. So we had some fun years, when I was there, and still got a lot of good pals that are play pro ball right now. And Ryan, to your point, until the last snap, you believe you're going pro. But in football, actually, it's less than 1% of collegiate Division I athletes go pro. So it's a very finite, very finite amount of folks. But you know what? I always had a love for people. I studied one of my majors was psychology at TCU, and I always had a love for persuasion. And so I think it just aligned me to sales and being with people, dealing with people. We're all selling something at some point in time in the day. Emily, if it's you, selling those folks not to explode that budget, or if it's me, we're selling it to large employers, we're all kind of selling something at the end of the day. But, like a lot of my panelists started out as a recruiter, actually a healthcare recruiter. So working the grindstone, 12, 13-hour days, behind the phones, setting up appointments, moving people from one place to another, trying to persuade them to leave their current job and find a new one. And it was brutal. But it really cut my teeth and allows me to have the discipline that I have today to still be able to pick up the telephone, go on the meeting, go on that call that nobody wants to go on, to do something meaningful for our company. And that's super, super valuable to me and to our team. And so I've got the good fortune of working for a company called Hinge Health, and we do all things around digital health. So if you think about physical therapy and how folks no longer want to go to a brick and mortar to have those services, we serve them up with doctors of physical therapy, health coaches, things of that nature as well, right in the comfort of your home. So we're all living in this digital world as we're sitting here chatting on the computer screen. And so just think about your doctor when you have those visits that a lot of us do now. We live in that world, and it's a fascinating place. Again, just having a love for people, it gives me the passion of what we're doing and really helping just employees, members, families kind of get back to what they love. We're all student athletes. We love to be active. It's hard when we're injured and we're down. Probably a lot of us have been there. Ryan, I'm a knee injury sufferer as well. It's what cut me short on my way up to Canada, but it's a real thing and there's a need for it. But, in terms of travel, I had the good fortune of traveling a lot with family as a missionary, a kid, and seeing a lot of cool places, but those definitely are the two that jump out the most. And unique people, unique cultures, pretty cool experiences. But happy to be here. Can't wait to visit with you all. Hope you enjoy this time. And again, thanks for having us.
Awesome, Marcus. So we have a couple things. We're going to make it a little bit of a shift here. Okay. So this is panelist Q&A time. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. When everyone's camera's on, I want to make sure that we're ready to rock and roll. And here's going to be the ask. Okay. I want just one. That's it. Just one. Okay. One question from you that you can ask Ben, Devyn, Emily, Marcus, or all of them that you're curious about, okay? Whether it's how they landed the jobs, ideas that they have to help you stand out in the interview process, finding that career that you're passionate about, how they did it, whether it's how did the transition work? Were there any challenges? Were there any obstacles? How were they able to get over not being able to play sports? And how were they able to take what they learned in athletics and transition that into the professional world? Whatever it might be, whatever questions you have, my only ask is that you go into the chat section and write them. That's it. Okay, everybody just write one question, unless you're Sarah, because she's driving. Okay, unless you're Sarah.
Wait, so can we ask them out loud or do we have to?
You
put them in the
definitely can
chat?
ask them out
Am I
loud.
speaking?
Yeah, for sure. Emma, why don't you go ahead?
Sorry. So I have a question. So like, I know that they say that like a lot of companies like to hire athletes because it's easier like for them to to make the transition into like a job because they've already been so disciplined. But like, what was something that was like a huge transition that you like weren't expecting kind of thing? Yeah, for anyone.
I was not expecting to be so tired when I started working. Like I thought that, you know, I woke up at 6 a.m., like pre 6 a.m., went to practice every day, went to class, like went to weights, did my homework, met a group project, like, you know, slept not enough in college. And I was like, oh, working like a 9 to 5 is easy. And my like first few weeks of work, I was exhausted. I don't think I was ever used to like actually sitting and using my brain for 8 consecutive hours. But that was the biggest surprise for me, I will say, was realizing that like thinking is also very hard. Running is hard, but thinking and using your brain and interacting with people for, you know, 8, 9 consecutive hours, that was a transition for sure. But I think that like in terms of, you know, time management and like workload and like all of that, those kind of things you learn being a student athlete make the actual job itself much easier. So I would say that. I feel like there's a lot of chats coming in about Nike specific. I don't know if other people want to answer that question first though.
Yeah, good question. Devyn, what would you have to say to that? I'm going to start picking on our panelists.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think, you know, at the point when I graduated college, I was the best of everything I knew, right? I knew who everyone was on campus. I knew how to get around to different places and where I needed to go. And I knew my classes and I knew my team. And, you know, I was like a senior leader, right? Like you're feeling fantastic. And you're like, great, now I'm going to take this. I'm so good at this. And I'm going to go, you're really good at this job. And it was a little bit of like, oh, wow, I have to really learn this. Like the people that I'm working with have been doing this for 10 or 15 years. And it was like this kind of like shock at first, like, oh, wow, these people are really good at this. And it just took me a second, right? And then there's all, you know, people help you and they train you and you learn. But I know there was that little bit of shock. You show up the first day and you're so used to being the best and you're kind of like back at the bottom again, wherever you start. And it's a fun challenge once you get it, but it is a little shocking that first day when you show up.
Ben, Marcus, do you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, Devyn and Emily touched on a lot of it. But for me, the kind of biggest transition was, you know, coming outside of a team that you're seeing every day, coaches that you're seeing every day, professors that you're seeing every day, and coming into a sales force where you've got all these new buyers, you've got new customers that you're dealing with, and it's not as fluid as, you know, you're used to. You know, when you're going into, you got practice, you know, even if it's 2-a-days, you know when that's coming, and you know when you've got your classes and all that is something that you're kind of used to, even though it might be long hours. But walking into a little bit of the sales organization and dealing with different customers, I mean, the day is completely different and up in the air, and it might change in any given second. So a little bit of the time management that Emily spoke on, but just being able to be, you know, be able to pivot at any given point in the day. That was kind of what the biggest transition was for me.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I've got some questions in the chat box. Who would like to, who's got the courage to ask outside of the chat box first? You guys are going to make me do it, aren't you? You're going to make me go to the chat box. I knew this was going to happen. I knew we were going to get to the chat box at some point in time. And I'm giving you guys an out. I should be a little harder, but I can't. So let me ask you this, Marcus. What do you feel like is the best thing that an athlete can do to prepare for an interview and stand out in the interview process?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think you can just like in your life right now, you can never under prepare. People that are overly prepared stand out heads and shoulders above without even knowing it. In terms of just the research that you've done on the organization, the research of the people that you're meeting with, just having a grasp on the role. They're not expecting you to know how to do the job in the interview. I think I think the first piece to me is just preparation is key. And again, it stands out significantly. I was actually interviewing an individual a couple of weeks ago, and you could tell how woefully underprepared they were. And you feel embarrassed for that person, honestly. And so I think as a student athlete, it's just innately in us to be prepared for the game day. And so for me, I have a funny story. I was in a crazy argumentation debate class. I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be. It showed. And I promised to myself, and my wife was in that class, girlfriend at the time, I will never in my life be that unprepared, that it's that embarrassing. And it's stuck with me in from preparing my kids for soccer and gymnastics to my every single day life. I really think it goes into your preparation, and just really being present and meaningful as you go through it.
Good. Emily, Ben, Devyn, anything you guys want to add?
I think one thing that always helps me and when I see people shine for these interviews is you guys are really good at certain things. And just because you're all athletes doesn't mean it's the same thing, but you've brought something to your team that you're really good at. And you probably know what that thing is, but if not, I can see a lot of you guys know each other, right? You can ask your teammates, what am I good at? What can I work on, right? They'll give you that feedback. That's why you have great teammates. That's why you guys have fantastic teams. And know where your strengths are. You don't have to have the picture perfect answer of what your strengths are that Google tells you should say in an interview. Like, what are you actually good at? And then if you get thrown off in an interview, you know where you are really strong, and you can kind of, pull your way, pivot a little bit, and start talking about what you know you're really good at. And that's one thing, no matter what kind of presentation I'm going into, whether it's not really interviews right now or anytime lately in my life, but at times where there's those stressful things, if you kind of know where you stand and you're prepared for those things, you'll be able to get through it, and then you'll shine. You're being your true, authentic self. So it's kind of my best advice, and I see people shine.
Yeah, Ryan, real quick, just to piggyback on that, just real quick, and I know Marcus touched on preparation, but when you're looking into, a potential company and potential employer, and you're going through kind of the job description and things like that, look at those buzzwords and keywords that it's seeing that the company is taking the time to write out, and try to align those words with the strengths that, kind of Devyn's talking about. And, when you've got a hiring manager that's across the table from you and you're able to use the verbiage that company is already using, that's definitely going to help you stand out as well.
Yeah, that's like super great advice. I also know this is like kind of Nike specific, but might work for other companies too. But we are looking like super closely for brand passion. So if you like sign up for Nike Google alerts, or like we have like Shoe Dog is a book that came out like right before I interviewed for Nike, and I read it's like a memoir by our founder Phil Knight, and I read that book and like referenced some of like the things I really thought were cool in my interview, and my interviewer was like very impressed by that, just showing that like you're passionate and not just like, oh yeah, I played football and I wore Nike cleats, so I love Nike. It's like go beyond that and like really show your passion for the brand. We look for that in all of our interviews. That's like our very first requirement is like, do you have a finance degree? And do you have a passion for the brand? And after that, it's just like, can you have a conversation? And I've done our interviewing for interns now for 3 summers. So I'm very familiar with that side of the process, and brand passion is super important at Nike.
Great. So it sounds like it's being over-prepared, doing your homework and your research, being passionate about the job you're about to apply for, and knowing what it is that you're good at, so you can stand apart and leveraging your teammates, whatever you've got to do to really get a good understanding of that. One thing that I want to add is dress the part, okay? Whatever that means to you, dress the part. If I see an athlete who dresses well, right, for whatever part it is, I almost always look for a reason to hire them. I'm actually looking for a reason to hire them as opposed to not hire them, okay? Because I know the intangibles behind the scenes of what it takes to be an athlete. There's nothing more demoralizing for me when I look at a resume and they've got all of these athletic accomplishments, and then they come into my office and they're not dressed the part, okay? But when they are dressed the part, it speaks to me and says, okay, they're over-prepared, they're overtrained, they're overdressed, their resume matches, I'm ready to hire them on the spot if they're that good. Okay. So make sure you're also dressed the part. Again, I don't expect you to be in a suit and tie if you're interviewing for like Nike, for instance. Probably not the part you want to be dressed for. But again, that's why I said dress the part that you're applying for. Okay. So taking it a step further, some good questions here. When did you know what you wanted to do for your career? So when did you figure out, like, this is what I want to do when making that transition from being an athlete to the career world? Who would like to tackle that first?
Ryan, I'll say that to me, sales is the professional sports arena, right? There is constant competition. Devyn and I think and Ben can attest to this. You as well, Ryan, for your team. You're constantly competing, and so I think for me, that initial job in recruiting and out hustling my peers and others to move folks, it lights that fire within you. And I think when you have the passion to do that, I think that's when the button clicked for me, that this is a profession that gives me flexibility, gives me the earning potential that I want for my family. I also have a real life outside of this. Like I can work a 9 to 5, I can work a weekend. And so I think once in the couple of years into my first career, my first job, I realized this is where I want to be for life.
Really good.
I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I work for a winery now and it's great. I love selling wine and the industry I'm in is fantastic, but I didn't have wine knowledge that I knew I wanted to go sell wine. I actually knew nothing about wine, like literally nothing. And it was the people, it was the atmosphere that I found that reminded me of my teams that I had known and loved and been a part of my life for a long time. So it's a different kind of team that I found, but that culture and that willingness to teach and build a culture and build a team and teach you how to build a team and to be able to read people, that's what I knew I wanted. And then the sales part was fun too, because I'm like, oh, it's like a competition. And I get to have a team and I get to learn how to build a team and I get to be a strong leader. So once I found the people, I was like, I will learn how to sell wine. I want to be you and I want to be a part of your team. And that's kind of what pulled me in. So sometimes it'll be, you really want the job. Sometimes you'll really want to be surrounded by a certain group of people and that's where you're going to work. And those people are going to be your people. So that never hurts also.
Good. I think I found my wine hookup for the rest of the year. So it's fantastic. Ben, Emily, what about you two?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that similar to Devyn, I didn't know what I wanted to do and I still don't know what I want to do. I haven't had a moment that's clicked for me that's been like, oh my gosh, I love finance. I love my job currently, but that doesn't mean I can't change career paths. But what I do love is the company I work for, and I love our values and the people and the culture. And I know I want to stay at Nike for a while. And I think that Nike is a company and a lot of other companies the same way. You can jump around. I can go to marketing. I can, I don't have to stay in finance forever. And I think that's kind of nice to be flexible. You don't have to find your calling and do that for the rest of your life if you don't want to. There is flexibility these days. I feel like my parents worked at the same company for 25 years and then retired. I might work at Nike forever. I probably won't stay in finance forever, but I don't think if you don't know what you want to do with the rest of your life immediately, I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it's great to get out there, get your first job, see what you think of it, and don't be afraid to pivot, because I feel like people can get stuck and then they stay in, accounting or something for 20 years and they never enjoyed themselves. So I would say be open-minded more than anything. And don't feel like you need to know exactly what you want to do and find your calling by the time you're 25 years old, because you don't.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo a little bit of Emily and Devyn on this. Obviously with Devyn and myself working together, we share a lot of the same thoughts as far as the company that we're working for and just great people. And I think the thing that I'll kind of lean in on is the career path and the growth and opportunity there. For me, coming in and not knowing what I wanted to do, it was realistic. Hey, you want to go sell wine and make more than you were making at Nike part-time. Like that was realistically what the thought process was for me at the time. And once I got on board, saw the people, and then started watching how people were moving up the ladder, for me to, at this point be, 6.5 years into my career and have held 4 different jobs, whether it's a, single, sales representative, or whether it's been me managing people for 2 of my roles, it scratches that itch to be able to kind of be malleable and pivot and kind of find what I like to do, all while kind of staying in the same hierarchy in industry.
It's good. So, and for me, I learned what I didn't want in my internships, as much as anything. So like my internships were as valuable by finding out what I didn't want as they were as what I did. And I found out that like, I just wanted to help impact as many lives as I could. I want to make a lot of money doing it, right? Like that's what I learned from my internships, not necessarily what direction I was going to go, et cetera. Then I started to explore careers that were very lucrative, where I felt like the work that I was doing was directly impacting people's lives for the better. So I kind of backed into it, and it worked out really, really well. So sometimes internships, et cetera, have a good effect, but for different reasons, which is going to bring me to my next question for you. Ben, did you have an internship every summer in college?
I didn't have a job until graduating college. I never had a job, an internship. It was basketball. That was life. And, looking back on, some of my friends that were doing stuff and getting into internships and, having those return offers and things like that. In hindsight, I was like, man, I wish I had made some time for that. But I did not have an internship going through college.
Emily, what about you?
I had a summer job at Luke's Locker, which was a running store. If anyone's been, there's a couple locations in Fort Worth and Dallas. And that was my only job I had until the Nike internship. And also just speaking from being on the other side, we do not, like if we see that someone was a student athlete, we count that as their job. And also internships before your junior year are usually like through a family friend or like something you like spun out of like nowhere, and like we're aware of that. Like recruiters are usually aware of that. So I have never put a lot of emphasis on those internships until I think like between junior and senior year can be kind of important, because a lot of times they result in return offers, which gives you a lot of confidence and stability going into senior year, but it doesn't mean you have to have one.
I never had an internship. I never really had a job either. So I think the good part, if I would have, is I would have known certain things to look for. Because I knew when I started interviewing, I'm like, I don't even know like what to ask. Where like, and I look now, like if I would have like been somewhere for a summer, I would have been like, how would you handle a situation like this? Or what is the growth path look for like this? Because I would have had something to kind of go off of, or a culture that I was kind of looking for, or to kind of ask questions to lead if that company did have those things. So that would have been the best part of it. But I think besides it like being good for me, there's a lot of companies that find value in you as a student athlete because of what you've done. And if some companies may not, and they be like, you need an internship, but they also might not know what you have to bring to them. So there are a lot of companies out there that see what you guys are doing as way more than having a summer internship. But if you have an opportunity, take it, because it's only going to help benefit you.
Ryan, I didn't have an internship, but I did work spring and summer jobs. Like after spring football, I actually was a waiter at Papado's on I-30 over there, for anyone that knows that Papado's over there. So, it just allowed me to work and refine my people skills, and allowed me to continue to work on balance in schedules and obviously prioritization. But, I tell folks that I visit with, my job at Papado's absolutely didn't escalate me to the job I am today by any means. I know the menu still for sure, but yeah, not. And I say that to say I had a lot of friends that did have internships, and I had a lot of friends that didn't, and I had friends that just worked regular jobs like I did, as well. And I think it all just adds to, exactly to what Ben and Devyn and Emily said, just being able to show your skill sets, if you were able to do that. But yeah, don't be afraid if it's just a job and you can't snag an internship, for sure.
That's great. So this question comes from Julia Adams. If you could go back to your college self and give yourself one piece of advice regarding your profession, what would you say? I'll say that again. If you can go back to your college self and give yourself one piece of advice regarding your profession, what would you say? That's a good question, by the way. Kudos to you, Julia.
Thank you.
I'm if it's me, it's kind of similar, going back to the question we just answered. It's internship, or you're kind of diving a little bit more into career development and in preparation. It was something that when I graduated, it was legitimate. All of us have kind of touched on this. I had no clue. It was graduation day. It was over. Derek Fisher came and spoke at our thing, and then I was done. And it was, I don't have a job, and all my friends do. So I think that's something that I would have gone back and tried to dive into a little bit more. Just from a preparation standpoint, from an interview standpoint, being in the sports world, I had some plugs with, various brands, and I, was trying to make some calls with Reebok and Adidas and things like that, and things weren't really working out, but I didn't know the email etiquette. I didn't know how to reach out and things of that nature. So really definitely would have worked more on the preparation side.
I can give a really tangible piece of advice. And that's Excel. Know how to use Excel. I work in finance, so that makes sense. I use Excel, but like my roommates, one's a mechanical engineer, one is a software engineer, one works in HR, and all of us use Excel every single day. If you work at a business, you're going to be using Excel, and you can really impress people if you know how to navigate an Excel spreadsheet really well right off the bat. And I had to learn that. I took the Neely Excel course, but I'll be honest, it was not that helpful. There are a lot of online resources that you can, that's what I started doing when I started working, and I picked it up in a month. And then everyone, to this day, everyone's like, oh my God, Emily, the Excel wizard on our team, ask her how to do it. And I think it really has helped set me apart. So, because people love efficiency at large companies and small companies, probably.
I think I got really lucky, to be honest. I didn't take the networking stuff seriously. You guys have a fantastic portal with the team you have on here right now that sets up stuff like this. And at Oregon, it was very similar. They had networking nights where they brought people in from all the companies around Eugene and Portland and had us talk to them. And I remember just being too tired and ready to go home. And so we would go grab the brownie and have some lemonade and get out of there, right? Because we just been practicing for 5 hours. And in my head, I was totally justified. And it is justified when you're tired and you're ready to go, right? I still feel where I was coming from. I wish I would have taken those opportunities, because one, I would have learned how to speak to people that I didn't know. I didn't realize I was going to get thrown into sales, and that was going to be my job, right? Doesn't scare me anymore, but I wish I had a little more practice. I've also networked and met some really great people. I got really lucky the fact that I met Gallo when I did, and that they ended up being the right fit, because what's the chance that the one table I go up to is the one company that I end up loving, right? I wish I would have set myself up a little bit more and been a little bit more prepared. I think I would have only thanked myself, and that's probably the advice no one really wants to hear, right? But I wish I would have, and I think it would have helped me.
Good, Marcus.
Yeah, I love what the three of you said. I think as it regards to my specific profession, I think as student athletes, we're used to, being on, at the top of our game, being one of, maybe the top on your team or within that realm, if you will. And so we always automatic and assume it's instantaneous. Everything is instant. I can get the first job. I'm going to have the first sale. Everything's going to just happen really quickly for us. So I think for me, it'd probably be give myself grace and patience. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take work, just like you're putting in today. And just like if you sat back and look at yourself as a freshman to where you are today, if there's any, sophomores or juniors out there, seniors, what have you, it's taken time. And you had to have that patience. And I think with your career, I'm not saying sit back and eat bonbons and drink, diet soda all afternoon when you graduate, but majority of the time, you're not going to walk out and just instantly find that dream job. I mean, you might, and that is an awesome, awesome thing. But for me, I would say, hey man, have grace for yourself, just because the pressure we put on ourselves as athletes, and have patience with the process. as you navigate your way outside of collegiate sports?
Really good. So we have time for 2 more questions. I'm going to go the opposite direction of what we just did. So the advice of what would you give yourself? Is there any advice that, or something that you would tell yourself to stop doing? So something that a habit you created as an athlete, making the transition from athletics to the professional world, a habit or something that you wish you had stopped sooner or stopped doing to help you make that transition a little bit easier.
I guess I can start with this. I felt like in college, like everything was like go, 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 go. Like probably all of y'all and myself included in college was so busy all the time. And when I got to my job, I felt like I had to be doing something every single second of the day. And I sat down with my intern manager and I was like, okay, so like I'm here 40 hours a week and you given me 3 projects to work on. This is supposed to be 30% of my time. This is supposed to be 40%. And I don't think you've given me enough work based on like this. And he was like, okay, no, like 40 hours is like kind of the work week, but also we have half day Fridays during the summer. So knock that down to like 35, 36. And then it's like, you go to the bathroom, you stop at your coworker's desk, you ask them how they're doing. Like you go on a run with a coworker at lunch, you take a longer lunch. You have like a live chat with like your mentor about, that meeting that was really frustrating. Like your job, you do not have to be doing something productive at all hours of the day. And that made me feel very like discouraged and unaccomplished. And like I did not have job satisfaction because I was not like, I didn't feel like I was working hard enough. And I also feel like I was comparing myself to peers in like other finance jobs, like investment banking or public accounting, who were actually working like 80-hour weeks. And I felt like I like wasn't pushing myself, and that was not the case. I work at a laid back company that values work-life balance and was giving me work that I needed to do my job well. And I should have known that, and I didn't. And I wish I would have learned that a bit sooner, because I went through like the entire internship thinking that I was like underperforming and like not achieving, and that just isn't the case. So, yeah.
It's good. It's good feedback.
I think mine is asking for help. I don't know why, and it's still hard for me. And we hate doing it. I think even maybe it's part of being an athlete, and like you're able to do it on your own, or you want to do it on your own, or you go put in the time on your own so that you don't let someone else down, right? I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I know that was so hard for me. And I would just be so frustrated when I first started working. It still happens to me to this day. So I think it's a good reminder for all of us, no matter where we are. It's okay to ask for help, and you should. People around you will help you and train you and teach you. And it doesn't mean that you're not there. It means you're not there because no one ever taught you. And sometimes in the work world, you've never done that job, so you don't know. Or, back in college, right? If you didn't, just ask. The people around you will help you. And I think that's one thing I would still tell myself today. So if you can relate that at all, and ask for help. It doesn't mean that you don't know how to do something. It means you want to learn how to do more than you know how to do. And that can come across in a really good, positive way, and be okay with that.
I would also like to add really quickly to that. I thought that I annoyed everybody that I asked for help. It wasn't that I didn't think I needed help. I knew I needed help. I was just too scared to ask. And now that I like help onboard our like entry-level employees, like I love when they ask me questions. It makes me feel like I get to help somebody. And like, you don't need to be scared to ask people for help. I still do it. I'm still like, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I'm annoying. No, like people like to help other people. Most people do. And like that, I think it's huge. Like, it's not just being afraid to ask, but like not feeling like you're being annoying. Cause like, why would you know how to do everything that the senior person knows how to do? You don't. So yeah, ask them and they will help.
Yeah, I think for me, and a little bit, it's kind of similar to Emily's take on this, but just understanding the work-life balance, and as an athlete, to compare it to, getting up extra free throws, and you got the sprint work and running hills and all that good stuff. And then you take back, you go to the training room and you're icing up and taking that time to decompress and chill out for a second. When I got in the work world, I still kind of do this day. it is kind of this go, go, go mentality, and I'll keep going and I'll work a couple extra hours. And there comes a time where there's burnout and you're wondering why you're not able to concentrate quite as much, or, you might not have as much patience as you normally would, and still trying to equate that to, hey, as an athlete for half of my life, you'd ice, you'd lay down, you'd chill, decompress to get back ready for the next game in 2 days. And so trying to equate that analogy back to work and just, being able to turn it off every now and then and just really get some rest, because, you'll still be able to get, same way your body gets beat up, your brain can kind of get beat up too. And so just giving yourself a little bit of grace, to use Marcus's verbiage, but grace and time to really just, settle and decompress to get back into it the next day.
Yeah, Ryan, I think as we last minute or so here, we live in a world of instantaneous, everything's instantaneous, and everything is, we're athletes, so we compete. But I think the advice I would say is kind of my tagline. I tell people to read off their own paper. I don't know why Ben is in the role he is, but I can't compare myself directly to him. Financially, success, career growth, trajectory. I haven't walked in his shoes, nor have I walked in Emily's shoes, or vice versa. And yes, we're on the same team. For me, I had buddies that were on my same team that got a tryout with an NFL camp and went and played for 9 years. And I'm thinking, man, my stats blew his out of the water. How in the world is that happening? Yeah, and I don't know, but that's just not what was meant for me. And so I had to learn, and it took time, that I just needed to read off the paper that was given to me. Your professors would tell you, stop cheating on tests. You have to look on your own paper if you want to get the right grade. And I would encourage folks that it's a tough thing to do in the world that we live in. But if you can actually accept that for yourself, you have a lot more peace, where you are and as you move forward. So I'd really encourage you to look on that single world sheet of paper. Look on your own. Keep your eyes on that one.
That's awesome. So first of all, Ben, Marcus, Emily, Devyn, appreciate the advice, number one, and willing to participate and allowing me to give you guys a hard time and moderate. You guys gave awesome advice, by the way. It was fantastic. I always like to use this as an opportunity to network. Maybe some of these folks who are on this call could be future employees of the firm that you're at. So Ben, Marcus, Emily, Devyn, if you'll do me a favor, if you can just put in your email and phone number, and then whether or not you're comfortable with them connecting with you on LinkedIn, that would be fantastic. So that way they can see it, they can write it down in the chat function and have a way to get a hold of you to make sure that if they have questions, because I saw some specifically, Emily, how hard is it to get an internship at Nike? I saw some different things. So if people want to take a deeper dive into learning more, just getting advice from you, the field, the industry, et cetera, I'm sure they'd love to have your contact information. And Terrence, McKenna, I'll throw it over to you two.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Ryan again, and Marcus, Emily, Devyn, and Ben. This has been beyond anything we've even expected, because this is our first time doing this event, and Ryan met with us last year about doing this. So I just want to thank everyone for the advice and the suggestions. I hope that you have at least one takeaway from this session. I got some notes myself. I'm not even an athlete, and I'm taking notes myself. And so I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to wrap up here. We're going to record this session and share this on our Student Athlete Development YouTube channel. It's TCU SADEV on YouTube. Subscribe to that. All of our webinars from the follower on there, we'll add this video to our YouTube channel in about a couple of days. So McKenna, anything else to close us out?
Yeah, thank you so much again, guys. One quick thing, for the student athletes, I'm going to send a Google Sheet for a survey for the event. If you can fill that out, it'll take a few seconds. That will get you credit if you need it for attending this session. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to email me about that.
All right. Well, Ryan, again, Ben, Devyn, Emily, Marcus, thank you so much. This has been above and beyond what we expected. But everyone have a great night, and go Frogs.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for the time, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.